Welcome to Loup TV. I'm your host, Gene Munster. Our topic today is the Zestimate versus the real estate market at large. We are fortunate to have a 35-year residential real estate veteran join us and tell us what the insiders think about this iBuying trend. Welcome, John Wanninger. John he's with Sotheby's right now, as I mentioned, has been a long time, and we get a lot of mail regarding the topic of iBuying from real estate professionals. And the reason why I wanted to jump on with you is just your level of insights. It just is felt very much level-headed around this theme, the gives, the takes, the pros, the cons, and so thank you for enlightening us around that. And I'll just jump right in here, and let's think about this in two pieces. We'll start with just the experience from the seller. As you think about clients that you deal with, what do they think about, if anything at all, in terms of the option of selling their home to someone like Opendoor or Zillow?
Well, most of my clients are comfortably above that 325, 350 price category, where Zillow and the other iBuy firms seem to be targeting. But I can tell you that there's some distrust in the fairness of the offers. And
Okay.
the few deals that I have seen, I actually have sympathy for those home sellers because they really got fleeced.
Okay, let me kind of break that down into two pieces here. One is the clients that you typically deal with. We talked about being kind of comfortably above the national average. Does it even come up with them? Do they even say, what about Zillow? Do they care about Opendoor? Do they even know what either of those are? Like, what context would these digital platforms have in the conversation?
The iBuying side never comes up. I mean, never. Occasionally somebody might ask about the Zillow estimate, largely because it's, many cases it's far below the actual value of the home, especially in this real estate environment of rising prices.
So you maybe 20% of the time, would you say they bring up this estimate?
At the most.
Wow, that surprises me. And that is actually consistent with what we've heard from other real estate pros too. And so good to know. Thank you for reiterating that. And as we talked about, kind of the sweet spot too, it's fair that Zillow and Opendoor, they typically make offers, as you said, kind of right around that $300,000 mark. And so maybe that's not where you spend most of your time, but of the interactions or other professionals that you've talked about, what's the reaction or maybe the appetite for those more, we'll call them mainstream sellers to explore iBuying?
There's a lot of skepticism about, as I said, the fairness of the price. And while homeowners might not like the fee structure in traditional real estate, everybody's scared that they're going to make a mistake, and iBuying falls right into that category.
Got it. That's a good insight there. So it's even your home is typically your biggest investable asset, especially for kind of that mainstream price point. Making a mistake, you definitely don't want to do that. Maybe talk a little bit more about that kind of tension, if you will, between not wanting to make a mistake and the fee structure. Has there been, you just kind of think back over the last 5 years, has there been more movement on the fee structure, the compensation, the commission, or has that just still been pretty steady given the dynamic between not wanting to make a mistake?
It's been pretty steady the last 5 or 6 years. There has been continued downward pressure over the 35 years I've been selling homes. It's gone from 7% across the board to it's between 5 and 6% now, depending upon the house and the agent and the brokerage. But I'm in an industry that is highly emotional. It's very personal. And I wear a lot of hats. I'm a psychologist, a marriage counselor, a school expert, sometimes a babysitter for adults. It's all across the board. And while people don't love that fee structure, they are afraid of making a mistake. They don't trust themselves to make those big decisions. Housing is not really a commodity. There's a great variance in beauty, function, condition, location, all of that. And you really need experience to nail the pricing.
I'm curious, does a typical seller, how do they articulate that concern about making a mistake and also maybe some of their concerns about the fee structure? Or do people, do they address it head on? Like, I'm afraid of blowing up here and I shouldn't be paying you as much as I'm paying you? Or is it more subtle how they address those?
It's more subtle. I get called because of my experience and my reputation and the fact that they can see, for sale signs with my name on it all over the neighborhood. And so they're always curious. A lot of times they'll get a second or third opinion, but it is a big deal, and overpricing or underpricing can have serious financial consequences.
Good to know. Let me ask you this. If you're going to take the approach right now, it's at most 15-20% of people are focusing on this iBuying opportunity. What needs to happen? Can you think of anything from, if you're going to be an advisor to Zillow or Opendoor, what you'd recommend for them to try to improve their market share in iBuying?
Well, it starts with the Zestimate, and the Zestimate, I feel it cheats. It uses tax database. If the house hasn't been on the market for a while, it's probably underestimated. And you can see it with Zillow when a home hasn't been on the market for a while. I just had one where the Zestimate was about 60% of actual market value. As soon as it hit the market, it went up to basically list price, but the home sold for almost 10% over list price. So Zillow never quite got it right.
They're 70% off or 50% off, I guess.
Yeah, they were. And
that's measurable.
That is measurable. And until they can get the Zestimate to where it's not simply reacting to the MLS data, which we all have, it's just not a believable number.
Let's pause that side of the conversation and shift over to the industry side of the conversation. And the basic topic is, do real estate professionals see the writing on the wall that eventually these iBuying platforms will replace them or cause some pressure on what their fee structures are? And from my perspective, I lived this when I started in the investment industry as a junior analyst back in the mid 90s. We were moving from fractionalizations. Yes, it is true. Stocks used to be traded on fractions to decimalization, which they're traded today. There was this concern that the margins would be taken out of trading desks. In fact, that did happen. It took 20 years plus to happen, but there was kind of this slow downward trajectory. And so, John, from your perspective, as you and your other real estate professionals, your colleagues, think about this iBuying trend, is it something that maybe in a quiet moment you're nervous about, or is there a dynamic here that is different than what happened in the trading desk example?
I think that's a great analogy and comparison. I do think eventually they will figure out the Zestimate. Machine learning, more data, eventually it's going to get there, I think, and at a broader price category. So the upper limit of what iBuying might be willing to purchase will expand. So yeah, I do think over time it will have an impact. It will probably affect the lower part of the market more than the upper bracket.
Why is that? Because just the nuances, that psychological side of the upper part of the market?
Yeah, and the upper market's filled with unicorn type housing. They're custom built. They're all, they're not generic. They're not tract homes, and it's going to be really difficult to ever get to an iBuying point there. But I do think it will impact fee structure. We are probably the last industry that's so disconnected and expensive. Just about every other industry has gotten more efficient and fee structures have come down. So I think it's inevitable. I've been predicting it for 25 years myself. I thought Target and Walmart were going to get into real estate years ago. It turned out to be,
didn't know that.
Yeah, the disruptors are getting into it. But we were also, I've had business cards that said Prudential and Merrill Lynch as well. So everybody's been after the juicy fee structure in real estate for a long time.
Yeah, and in fairness to the salespeople like yourself, more consulting than salespeople is a better, I think, way to think about it. But in fairness, is that that 5%, it actually is just a small relative to a typical transaction. When we've done the work of the home, is more like 15%, which includes that 5%. So there are a lot of other things that people spend money on when they move, and I think that there can be an overemphasize on what that commission is. But one final question: you said the upper end of the market probably won't get touched. Maybe the mainstream market will over time. Is over time 25 years? Is it 5 years? Yeah, it's just a pure guess here, but your guess is better than mine. You're living it every day. What do you think?
Well, if Elon Musk can get us to Mars, I think Zillow can figure out the algorithm. So I would say 5 years, maybe 10 on the outside.
Yeah, that's probably lines up nicely with the timing of Mars's visit, the visit to Mars. And I'm so tempted to do another spatial analogy here. I'm not, but I'm going to stop and leave the conversation there. Thank you, John, for continuing to educate the Loup team about the nuances of the real estate market and joining us today. On behalf of John, Gene, myself, and Loup TV, bye for now.